Hi, this is Alan Olson, and welcome to American Dreams. My guest today is Carson Holmquist. Carson, welcome to today's show.
Thanks, Alan. So grateful to be here. Appreciate it.
So Carson, you have a very unique background, and you're doing some very innovative things right now. And so, can you tell us a little bit about your career and how you got started, and then we'll bring it up to what you're currently working on.
Yeah, of course. So in college, I was paired with an entrepreneurial startup logistics company. I was studying to be an entrepreneur, and I had a great guidance counselor who said, hey, I heard about this startup company here in town. They're in logistics. You could probably learn a lot from an early startup environment. So joined a logistics company, and not only did I learn a lot of the entrepreneurial skills to scale a company and grow it, but I learned about the logistics industry, which is a massive part of the U.S. GDP. I mean, it really makes this country run, right, at the heart of it. So I got fascinated with the industry and spent some time with that company and ended up launching Stream Logistics, our logistics company, which is a more specialized version of what some of the larger logistics companies do in this country.
Yeah, so can you elaborate on some of the unique challenges that you're facing in transporting high-risk freight and how Stream Logistics addresses these challenges?
Yeah, so I mean, logistics is kind of a catch-all term for like moving products, right? But what we do specifically, it's the big semi trucks moving, either large volumes or large products across the U.S. We specialize in what we call high-stakes freight, meaning freight that has to be delivered on time, or there's real serious ramifications, either financially or it could just halt production of something. And in that environment, it's all about impeccability. You have to be reliable on when you pick up, when you deliver, and if things happen during transit, you have to be really adaptive to make sure that you're overcoming those challenges. So for us, it's an exercise in adaptability and creativity, so it's really fun. And with that mindset, we discovered the industry of offsite construction. And this is a modality of construction where, as much as you can, you build components of a building in a factory. So it could be wall panels. It could be a bathroom pod where you might build 200 bathrooms for a hospital, for example, in a factory where you have all the toilets, the sink, the tile, the drywall, everything done, and you can essentially slide them into place. Or, in probably the most advanced form of offsite construction is modular construction, where you build modules of living spaces. So in apartments, you could build an entire apartment complex. So one bedroom, one bath apartment with kitchen and bathroom, and carpet, and even a lot of the fixtures built in a factory. And then our job is to transport them from the factory to the job site, where they're eventually going to get stacked and connected and turned into a building. And we think it's fascinating technology. We love it. We think there's amazing benefits that general contractors and property owners can get from using modular technology. But a lot of the best practices haven't been established yet. It's a young, immature industry. And from a transport perspective, unique investments have to be made in order to transport these big, heavy, wide, long modules. Do it safely to make sure you're not getting damaged, and you have to do it with impeccable timing to make sure that you're not slowing down a construction site. So we love the challenges of it. We think the work that we're doing in relation to these type of projects are helping with affordable housing. They're helping with the speed of building housing in the U.S. So it's really fun to be a part of, and it keeps us on our toes because we're all constantly innovating.
So as a business owner, there was a decision to actually split your company in two, the modular and the logistics. Can you elaborate a little bit for, how the model differs between the two?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in specialization, finding a niche and going and being world-class at that one thing. There's so many benefits that are derived from having your attention focused on one specific area. Our mutual mentor, Dan Sullivan, he says your eyes only see and your ears only hear what your brain is looking for. So we decided, in order to make the impact we want to make on the modular transport industry, we had to have a team that thinks about that and only that all day long. And so our iteration cycle is really fast, and we can deepen our understanding of their world and the actual job to be done. And through that, we can recognize even some unspoken needs during the process where, hey, they're not asking for something, but we see some opportunities for improvement and we can innovate around that. So the only path to make the type of progress we wanted was to create a separate division, a team, a specialized team of ninjas that are only thinking about this modular world. And then we still have our high stakes freight team as well that are focusing on that world. And so we get the benefit of specialization, and the two individual teams are able to do things that they wouldn't be able to do if they're trying to divide their attention between the two different types of transportation. And that theory has played out to be really well. We're learning so quickly, and we're really proud of the progress we make in a short period of time.
Now, Carson, in the modular world, is there a particular fabrication facility that you're serving, or do you serve one, or do you serve many?
We serve many. So there's a lot of factories that have decided that this is a better mode of construction, or at least for some use cases, it's a better mode of construction. So these, a lot of times, are people who have background in construction, and they're saying, hey, this could be done better or faster or cheaper, or we're able to accomplish things we couldn't do out in the field. And so factories are being started up all over the country right now. It kind of feels like an inflection point for the industry, where there's been enough success with enough factories where people are saying, okay, this is a viable model. Now let me go make my own investments and have my own take on this technology and see what we can build. And so if you think about where demand for housing and demand for construction is the highest, those are the markets that are probably the most advanced. You get the California market, Colorado's emerging as a strong market. You got the Northeast, and factories are setting up around to serve those markets. And whichever municipalities are open to new technology and new methods of construction, that's where you're seeing the most progress.
Now, you position yourself to be more than a logistics company, taking on a project management role.
Yes.
What's entailed in that?
Yeah, you're right. It is more like project management. As I alluded to earlier, we think about what our clients need in terms of jobs to be done. It's an old Clayton Christensen concept, which means they're not hiring you for your specific services or your products. Someone's hiring you to accomplish a job. And that job is to move that module from the factory to the job site. And sometimes that's only transportation. But other times we have to arrange for a staging yard where the modules have to be stored for some period of time because maybe they ran out of space at the factory. Or maybe it's just you can create some efficiencies by getting the modules closer to the final job site. And so we've added services like staging yard management, where we go find a short-term lease, and we negotiate the lease. We set up security to make sure that the product is safe from theft and damage. And we continue to see opportunities to add more value in the cycle of the job to be done. And that only happens because we understand their world. We understand the job to be done at a deeper level now. So when we say project management, we're saying, what's the vision here? What's the vision? What's the pace? How many modules a day are you planning to set? When do you need to set them? When are they coming out of the factory? We look at all the variables, and then we go architect a plan to execute with the lowest cost and the highest probability of success. And then during the project, it's all about communication. It's about adaptability. And so we take on much more of an ownership mindset than a just, hiring a service mindset.
I like the descriptor that you're functioning more like an architect.
Yeah.
Than a transportation company, that you're actually putting the design, when things need to be moved from point A to point B and implemented, and much different than just transporting a piece of material.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on down here. The development of your own software. The process for streamlining seems crucial. Can you share more about this role and the impact of owning your own software has brought into your business model?
Yeah, early on, we made the decision to build out our own software, essentially a platform for a company to run off of. We leased some softwares that allowed us to meet some of the basic functionalities, but we felt hindered by the constraint on capabilities. So we early on in I think is year 2 of our business, we decided, okay, we're going to build a platform which enables future creativity, future adaptability to what we're going to be. And so everything from our, it's essentially our ERP system, it's our AP, AR, it's every function, all of our reporting, all of our CRM is built in one software. So we get to integrate functionality, collect data, use advanced algorithms and AI to make sure that we're predicting, okay, which driver is most likely to want this load. And there's some algorithmic matching going on there for efficiencies, but also allows us to integrate really unique other software through API to make what we're doing even more efficient, more visible. And looking back, we were just trying to avoid feeling constrained, but now it's unleashed new capabilities and new possibilities that allow our clients to feel more confident that they know what's going on. They have visibility of the entire cycle of the project.
Seems like there's a big risk with the costs in your line of work, and how do you balance managing risks with the cost of delivery in order to make your projects a success?
Yeah, that's a great observation, because we're intentionally injecting ourselves in the world of high risk and high stakes. We've decided that it's more interesting, and we develop our own personal character better when it's an environment where there's a lot on the line, right? And it requires the best of our capabilities to pull it off. So we enjoy that. It does have to be calculated risk. And part of that is understanding what is at stake, understanding what our capabilities are, understanding what we don't yet know. And sometimes we have to make a commitment before we've built the exact capabilities that match. But we are confident that we could do that based off of our history. And at the end of the day, it's a bet on ourselves. It's a bet that we can adapt during the project. It's a bet that we understand what it is going to take to get the job done. And it doesn't mean we always hit that. Sometimes it's unprofitable because of some risk that we had to absorb and unforeseen risk. But we learn from that and we get better. That's why the iteration cycles, the speed of the iteration cycles are important to us, because we know we have an internal mantra that it's not about getting it right the first time. The probability that we'll get it perfect the first time we try anything is very low. So that shouldn't be the objective. Our goal is to get to the 10th iteration as fast as possible, because we know the 10th time we do anything, we're going to be very good at it. So we give permission to our team to move quickly, learn quickly, and make commitments that we know will pay off in the long term.
So Stream Modular has actually developed customized trailers. What inspired you to do that?
So these modules are getting bigger and bigger. The more square footage they could build in the factory, the less work is going to be required on site. So A, they're getting bigger. B, they're very difficult to handle because of their size, but they're also fragile to handle, right? If you're picking these modules up with a crane several times, you're getting these torsional forces that could twist and crack drywall, and it's an unnatural motion on a constructed product, particularly when you're constructing with timber, wood. So we need to be able to load and unload the modules without the use of a crane for efficiency's sake, so they don't have to use labor or crane to do it, but also to make sure that there's limited damage on the modules themselves to keep the integrity of them. So we design trailers that can back underneath a module when the module is stored up on these jack stands, which are called cribbing. So they're stored about 3 feet off the ground. Our trailer backs underneath the module, and through the use of hydraulic jacks, will lift the deck of the trailer up, making contact with the module and loading it. Then we can move the cribbing, drop the trailer back down to riding height, and then transport it. So there's no labor required other than the driver to do this maneuvering. And it's the safest and most balanced way to load a module. So it arrived, by the time it arrives ready to be set on site, we've eliminated a lot of costs associated with loading and unloading, and the module is going to be in better shape by the time it arrives, which means less work to fix things out in the field, which means it's all about cost control and efficiency. So in order to make the impact we want on the industry, we had to make those investments. And so we went out and designed and built. Right now we have 27 of those type of trailers. We're and that was in our year one. We invested almost $3 million in that process to build 27. We're going to continue to do that, and it's an investment that's necessary to move the industry where it needs to go to create the efficiencies, and that's been really fun because it's part of the innovative problem solving process that keeps us energized every day. It's seeing a problem and saying, what's the best solution for this, and going and making the investments to make it a reality.
So Carson, how do you see this industry evolving in the next 10 years?
So we're making big bets that the industry is only going to grow as a percentage of construction. And there's a few reasons for that. Like I mentioned earlier, it's still young. It's still an immature industry. Best practices are still being developed, right? So we know that there's a viability to the technology today, and it's not yet at its most efficient form. So we know that as it gets more efficient, the costs are going to decrease, the speed is going to increase, the demand for housing we're betting is only going to go up, right? So we believe it's going to grow as a percentage of the market. So right now, roughly 5%, that number's debated, but it's roughly 5% of the construction is done with some sort of offsite construction methodology. And there's only one direction that number is going to go, which is up, which means the demand for solutions, the demand for these trailers, the demand for project management mindset is only going to increase. And we intend to be the leaders in that space.
An individual wanting to get more information on Stream Modular or Stream Logistics, how would they go about that?
Our website. We spent a lot of time making sure it reflects what we're up to and the capabilities we have. So streammodular.com and streamlogistics.com are the best places. And I love engaging with people on LinkedIn. We're always talking about the investments we're making and the projects we're working on. So that's also a great place to check in.
Carson, it's been a pleasure having you with us on today's show.
Thanks, Alan. Appreciate it.